This is ACC Nation with Will Ogenin and Jim Quist, featuring ACC sports news and interviews. Available on streaming radio, podcast, and YouTube. Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ogenin. I'm Jim Quist, and we've got a lot to talk about. We've got ACC players going to the NFL. We're going to miss you guys. There's a lot of great players that we lost. Well, we didn't lose them. You know, we know where
they graduated.
Are. Yeah, they graduated. So let's take a look at how the NFL draft ended up. 32 picks overall for the ACC in rounds 1 through 7. 13 of 14 schools getting somebody in there. And it all started out with the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, Pitt's defensive tackle, Calijah Kancey, coming in the first round at number 19. A little bit of a surprise in some ways, but if I think, Will, if you were to have really looked closely at the needs of teams, seems to be a lot of restocking of the cupboards.
Definitely. And I think when you look at the situation in Tampa, yeah, Calijah Kancey was definitely a need. Even our friend Chris would even agree with that. But it also might say something that, you know, when your starting quarterback is Baker Mayfield and you passed on Will Levis and to an extent Hendon Hooker, I think that just really shows you what they really thought of those quarterbacks. But again, you know, this is a team that's been built around Tom Brady for, you know, a few years. He's gone. They're on the next phase of this team, and they decided it made sense to rebuild, you know, start building up that defense. And you know, we obviously saw what he could do in the ACC. He's Defensive Player of the Year, you know, all ACC, all the other stuff. Guy who will likely start day one, very well could. I think he has that potential. But at worst will be a rotational piece, somebody who's going to make an immediate impact for this team.
I agree. All-American. He was a finalist for the Outland Trophy, which is the Outstanding Interior Lineman Award, and the Bronco Nagurski Trophy, which is the National Defensive Player of the Year Award. Of course, finalists for both of those. Didn't win either one of them, but it says a lot about Kancey. He knows how to take up some space and to get after it. So, I was pleased with that being the number one pick for a lot of reasons, because I believe that was a good choice for Tampa or whomever was going to pick him. That was a good way to go. That is a 2020 hindsight observation on my part. I really wasn't sure who was going to go first. I kind of had a feeling that maybe Zay Flowers from Boston College was going first, because he's been so consistent in mock drafts, Will. I mean, how can you go wrong with Zay Flowers?
Right. You know, we've seen what he's been able to do there, and yeah, I think it's safe to say he did get into a perfect situation, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Everything came together to make that happen. So
for sure. And you look at the depth chart of the Ravens. Okay, you've got Odell Beckham Jr., who's coming off a torn ACL. I think he's a little bit on the downside of his career. And Rashad Bateman, who so far through his career has not exactly been a bastion of help. So I would expect to see a lot of Zay Flowers on the field this year. And I think he's in a great situation.
You know, if he connects with a former Louisville quarterback, Lamar Jackson, who's heading up things there in Baltimore, and it's apparently a pretty good negotiator because he did his own contract, and didn't come out on the short end of the stick there either. I can't help but think that you know, that combination, those two guys start working together, you're going to see a lot of action. Zay Flowers gives you so many options. And of course, you know, Lamar Jackson does too. So if you got those two rolling out, you don't know who's running at you or if there's a pass coming.
Mhm.
It could go either way.
Yeah,
That's
and you see what he's done in his career at BC. He's run the ball, a few times. They use him out of the backfield. He's definitely a weapon they can use a lot of different ways.
yep. Now, not too surprising that we see some Clemson players immediately in the first round. Miles Murphy and Brian Breezy are both great defensive players. Miles going to Cincinnati and Brian going to New Orleans. And I think the two great choices there. I think at one point during the season, early on, they were both, I think Brian more, well, I have to think about this for a second. Maybe Miles more so than Brian. I'm kind of flipping back and forth here, Will. But mock draft wise, it seems to me that basically people were kind of projecting these two guys to go first rather than Cansey and Flowers.
Mhm.
I mean that. Hey, look, it's a mock draft. One,
Right.
two, we kind of go off of what we've seen in the past, and no matter what anybody will tell you, I have yet to see anybody that really has all of the teams and players down pat, whether it be college or in the pros. I mean, you know a little bit about them, but you don't know everything about them. So there's an assumption on a lot of people's part, oh, it's Clemson, and Clemson's got a great defense. Well, these guys ought to go because in the past, everybody has gone high in the first round. So, natural assumption on everybody's part. Going to 28 and 29 is certainly nothing to sneeze at either.
Right. And especially the situation of Murphy, he's already on a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
With Cincinnati is definitely that. And just like with Elijah Cansey, at worst, he's going to be a rotational piece as a rookie, and the potential is there to start. Now, Breesy, obviously, the situation's a little different because New Orleans is in a bit of a rebuild.
Yep.
They need a lot of pieces. They're still working on things. But Breesy was a guy who I think would have been drafted way higher had he been able to stay healthy his last couple of years at Clemson. But still a ton of talent right there, and I think he'll do just fine there.
I think that's in part because Brian carried a lot of weight on his shoulders for that team. When they had some of that down season going on there, I think he took some of that on and maybe gave 125%. And when you do that, you're going to get banged up. It's going to push you. So that's the kind of guy that you want to have on your team. Somebody who is is bought in and he's going to play his heart out for you. I think that's who Brian Breesy. I will say that all of those players, Cansey, Flowers, Murphy, Breesy, all great players, and they're going to contribute. It's going to be fun to watch them. Every year, I sort of little sniff of the tears there. When we lose our guys, but there's always somebody in that's coming up behind them, and it's always fun to watch what they do when they get into the pros. In the second round, we've got three players. Atlanta is picking up Matthew Bergeron. New England is picking up Keon White, and Chicago it's Tariq Stevenson. Here's three players again, great contributors. This should be a lot of fun to watch these guys, and I know I'm going to have fun watching Stevenson, obviously, because I'm a Chicago's fan. But
Yeah.
Bergeron, I think Bergeron is going to have a really good career. That's my gut feel. Even though Atlanta is always like this, I don't know.
Yeah, they went from this high flying, offense. You think about guys like Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, and now they want to run the ball. And obviously, they drafted Bijan Robinson top 10 on Thursday, and Bergeron obviously has a history of being more of a run blocker. Obviously, the Syracuse has run the ball, pretty successfully with Sean Tucker over the years. He obviously showed himself very well into a second round pick. He being Bergeron, definitely has a chance to start day one at guard for the Falcons. I'm just sitting here looking at their depth chart. I'm like, Desmond Ritter's their starting quarterback. Oy. Boy, they're and this is the team that
Sometimes,
almost made the playoffs last year.
sometimes
Hey,
it's who you surround yourself with, my man. All I
yes.
gotta tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We know that Trent Dilfer, for example, won a Super Bowl because he had the greatest defense ever.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
exactly. Keon White, again, a guy who, just like the other guys, he has a chance to start day one, but will definitely be a rotation piece with a defense. Yeah, obviously Belichick being more of a defensive guy, curious to see what he can get out of him. And you mentioned Stevenson that the Bears needed help in the secondary. You've talked about that in our private chat, and this is the Stevenson pick is definitely addresses a need for them.
Let's get into the third round. A lot of players there. Garrett Williams goes to Arizona. Josh Downs to Indianapolis. Yaya Diaby goes to Tampa Bay. Trenton Simpson, Baltimore. Kobe Turner goes to the LA Rams. Here's a list of players, and the one that stood out more than anybody at all in this list to me was Josh Downs, but that's more, I think, a familiarity thing for me. And I think sometimes, if again, just from a casual standpoint, if you're not totally into every single team in college football or the NFL, you're not going to know everybody's name and what they're capable of doing. But Josh Downs at points really stood out to me as having potential, and I was looking forward to this draft.
Yeah, and I think he has a real shot to be, the third the a starting receiver, depending on, if they play three receiver formation. When you have they're probably going to roll out the season with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. So he's gonna need all the help he can get. Obviously Mike Pittman's are really good, and they have some really good tight ends, but they just don't have a lot of depth in receiver. And this is where Downs will fit their scheme really well. I know they're probably going to want to run the ball more. They obviously have Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, for example, but when they do want to open it up a little more, I think he's going to be a very nice piece for them. Love the Yaya Diaby pick by Tampa. Again, another rotational piece. Tampa really addressing the defense that wasn't that great last year. Um, Trenton Simpson lasted longer than I thought he would. I thought he had a chance to go round two. Again, going to Baltimore, they need some help at linebacker. Their defense has fallen off. I think he'll have a real shot. Kobe Turner, obviously, of weight, going to the Rams, and I think he's definitely somebody to watch, because I don't know if you're familiar with the Rams situation, but coming out of the draft, I want to say they had something to the effect of like close to like 40, 50, 60 players on their roster. And they're like gobbling up a bunch of undrafted free agents to try to fill out the roster. I mean, they'll probably sign some more players once we get through some of these cuts and whatnot. But Kobe definitely will be a rotational piece. And who'd have thought that like one of the first picks from Wake Forest would be a defensive player?
Exactly. I mean,
Mhm.
that if you know uh, our observations about the defense at Wake, then you'll know where we're coming from. We don't want to miss out on Garrett Williams here going to Arizona.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
kind of
Definitely a
skipped
good
over
pick.
him. So, yeah, that's I think that's a great
He,
move, and certainly a good move for him. I think
mhm.
that, he's going someplace where his talents definitely are needed.
Yeah, and the Arizona is kind of in a rebuild. He obviously Williams was the heart and soul of that Syracuse defense, and was very, very good. And yeah, I think he'll have a nice career. I think he'll do real well in a spot in Arizona.
So when we get into the fourth, we've only got a couple of players, well, three players there as well. Chandler Zavala goes to Carolina, Chamari Connor goes to Kansas City, and Carter Warren to the New York Jets.
Yeah, these are these the linemen are definitely going to be depth pieces, with opportunities to start. Zavala go pretty much staying, home in state there, going from Raleigh to Charlotte. It'd be a nice for him. Connor, the lone Hokie to get drafted. Of course, it was a defensive player. Again, Kansas City, not exactly deep at corner. I think he has a real shot to play. He'll probably be a backup to start, and then again, Warren, again, depth piece
Yep.
to start.
Now, I think you're pointing out something here. Let's just be really blunt about this. It seems to me, based upon what I have been seeing um, on this list and a couple of other lists, for other conference people outside of the ACC, there's a really strong need for special team players, and that opens the door for a lot of guys who, let's say, played safety or nickel or anything that is defensive, that they've got a little size to them and speed. They're going to lock in a spot on a team if
Mhm.
they stand out on special teams.
Yeah,
So
this is especially true with where we're at right now. The fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round. A lot of these guys, they're not may not see the field much, in terms of, playing offense or defense. They're probably going to have to play special teams to win a spot on the roster, at least to start.
yeah, and I've seen plenty of people make a career out of that.
Hmm.
And hey, for anybody who watches movies, you'll remember Mark Wahlberg playing a character who tried out for the Philadelphia Eagles and pretty much was a special teamer, a walk on.
Hmm.
So, I mean, and made a decent career out of it. So, and again, 3 to 5 years is a career in the NFL. So
I'm surprised you didn't, when you were talking special teams, being the Bears fan you are, you didn't mention like the greatest returner of all time.
well, you know, the thing is that he departed. So even though there's a history, unless he were to come back and finish as a Bear, he's somebody else's in my
I mean, how many years has he been out of the year now? I'm league now, but
yeah, yeah. I mean, come back for one day.
yeah, it's the one day.
He'll be a forever Bear for me at that point.
Yep.
Devin Hester.
Yep.
Yeah, some amazing run backs by that guy, just incredible. Um, let's see here. Let's get into the fifth round. Yasser Abdullah is going to Jacksonville. KJ Henry to Washington. Israel Abanikanda. I had that down and I knew I was going to stumble on it. Sorry about that. New York Jets. Jamie Robinson goes to Carolina. Cervese Dennis to Tampa Bay. Jordan McFadden to the LA Charger. Dontavian Wicks goes to Green Bay. And of course, we're going to talk about that. So Will Mallory, Indianapolis. Asim Richards, Dallas, and Davis Allen to the LA Rams. So some fairly, well recognized names here. Maybe that didn't have a lot of playing time or had an off year or whatever. But nonetheless, you get drafted in the NFL, you're in that upper 1%. So
Mhm.
that's all I can say about that. Um, I think that I get on that list, and I'm just looking at a load of talent that is really going to make a big difference, and probably will get a lot of playing time if they do well. If they've been invited to mini camp, some of these guys have been, and initially get in there and really work it out in camp and make the team. I think that a lot of these guys can see some action very early on. And I'm not talking preseason stuff. I'm talking actual, games. Um, there's quite a number of guys in here that I think could be at least rotational pieces.
definitely. And just to kind of look at Abanaconda first,
Thank you.
there's what's
Thank
that?
you. Thank you for saying his name correctly. My apologies to him. So,
Israel Abanaconda. So
okay.
yeah, I remember Brees Hall is coming off a season-ending injury last year. No guarantee he's going to be himself. Michael Carter has been, he's been up and down his career. Bonacana definitely has an opportunity to come in and get carries right away. He's going to be, he's going to be competing with Bam Knight, former NC State Wolfpack. So there's a lot of ACC in the backfield there outside behind Brees Hall. I remember Michael Carter, former Tar Heel, picked a couple of years ago in the draft. We should mention the ACC owned the fifth round of this draft, 10 picks.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple other ones to highlight. Servassier Dennis, I was a big fan of his at Pitt. Obviously, that defense has been really good for a while. Going to Tampa Bay will definitely get an opportunity to compete. Unfortunately, I've got to mention Dontavian Wicks going to the team just the next state over, and
Uh,
I was I saw that and I'm like,
uh,
damn, I'm gonna have to root for a Packer now.
well, I,
But being real though, that's a good landing spot. Have continued to neglect the wide receiver position um throughout their history in the draft, except for just here and there. I mean, they got a couple of really young guys, Romeo Dobbs and then Christian Watson. That's the other guy that's coming to mind. And they don't they drafted a couple tight ends in the draft, so Wicks can easily see some action right away. It's a good opportunity for him. I just hate that he ended up there. Um,
let
Will
me
Mallory what's that?
let me say this. Green Bay, I think, um, and this is tough for me to admit. Neither one of us are Green Bay fans. You're a Minnesota Vikings fan. I'm a
Of course,
Chicago Bears fan. We hate the pack. Okay.
we do.
There are things that we would and could say here, and we have to beep it out.
Yeah,
Um,
trying to keep it family friendly.
yeah, and it's all good competition and rivalry and all that nonsense. Here's the thing: I think Green Bay screwed Aaron Rodgers over throughout the years because, as you pointed out, they didn't bring in a whole lot of talent. Even though, a gunslinger like Rodgers, he made the most out of it. But if you think about it, if he'd had two top quality wide receivers on that team, consistent, that team would have been in a Super Bowl. It may have won. So,
Yeah, they won one like in what, 2011? I don't remember how, but it's been a long time since they won. And good on them because you know, yep.
yeah.
Word that would be bleeped out, the Packers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've obviously been, the Bears have been to a Super Bowl in the last 15 years.
One or two.
I don't, yeah, at least one in my lifetime. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
my
anyway,
says
that's,
something about my age. But anyways, let's get back to the draft.
we hope that Wicks does
Yeah.
well. Let's just
Yes.
be
Anyways.
blunt. ACC guy, Virginia guy,
Yeah.
boom. He's got the tools. Now, for God's sakes, Dontavian, put it to good use and
And
have
then at the first chance, bail.
after after your fifth year, just get
Yeah.
out of there.
Yeah. But
Anyway, Will Mount.
anyways, yeah, this is an interesting pick. I'm not I mean, I get the reasoning. I mean, they're running a lot of tight ends, but Indy has good tight ends already. Jelani Woods, Mo Alley Cox, they have good tight. I'm curious about this, what the fit is here, because I think he would have been better off in another organization. I feel like he could contribute elsewhere. We know Will can catch the ball. It's just a matter of staying healthy. I think maybe this will be a good value pick down the road, but I just feel like they were pretty full at tight end already, unless they plan to do something with like Mo Alley Cox or somebody else on the roster.
Well, you know, you get to a point where with players, they either age out, they injury out, they
Yeah.
salary out, and
Yeah.
you're not picking players to eventually replace them. And that's what I saw a lot of in this draft. I saw a lot of stocking up on people who are gonna be churn. You know, it's going to be a continuous churn, and it just tells you that some of the players that are there now that are stars, their time's coming. So anyway, um, I hope that Will does well.
Mhm. Yeah, I think part of it too, just kind of thinking about it, Mo Alley Cox is 29 years old. I think he's probably got to be getting close to um being close to free agency by now. I don't know what his contract status is off the top, off the bat, but I feel like he's somebody that maybe he doesn't have a lot of time left and they're thinking of, eventually letting him go when his contract comes up.
Yep, that tends to be the way things are going these days too.
Mhm.
All right, who else we got on that list? That we got Richards and Allen. Richards going to Dallas and Allen going to the Rams. So
Yeah, again on Allen there again, this team needs a lot. They don't have a lot of. I mean, they have some decent tight ends. Obviously, Tyler Higbee will start for them, but they don't have. They have some need some depth there at the tight end position. Remember Hunter Long, former BC tight end, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's where he went to. Yep, BC. He was drafted a couple of years ago. They have, he'll be there too. He has an opportunity to make the team there. And Richards again, depth piece. The Cowboys, have had a decent offensive line, an opportunity for him to make the team as a depth piece. At worst, maybe he's on the practice squad.
let's get into the 6th and 7th rounds, and we'll wrap this thing up. Cottrell Clark, Arizona. A.T. Perry, New Orleans. I think that's a good fit for both. Eric Hallett, Jacksonville. Antoine Green, Detroit. Raymond Vohasek, Jacksonville. DJ Ivy, here's another good fit, I think. Cincinnati. Brandon Hill, Houston. Guys, I hope that you make the most of where these teams have selected you and work yourself really solid there during the camp, and find a slot and have a long and illustrious career. What do you think of the 6th and 7th rounds there, Will?
Yeah, a lot of these guys are, gonna have an opportunity to make the team on special teams or at worst make the practice squad. But I am shocked A.T. Perry lasted to round 6, the 195th pick. I think that guy has a lot more talent than his where he was drafted. A guy who's tall, he's got good size, can catch the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But he has an opportunity. Remember, New Orleans doesn't have, they're rebuilding too behind Derek Carr. They have, they have a nice, starter in Chris Olave. Michael Thomas can't stay healthy. A lot of the guys that are on that roster are people you probably have never heard of, and they're probably bodies to try to fill in. I think AT has a real shot of making this team, and potentially contributing right away as a rookie.
I hope so. I'd like to see him do that. And on top of that, if he does well, if I'm down there during the season, which I probably will be, I'll pick up some tickets and go to the game watching. So that'll be fun. What do you think of DJ Ivy going to Cincinnati?
It's 246 pick, one of the last picks of the draft. But then again, he's a guy who's got the potential to make the team on special teams or and maybe get a practice squad. And we know with the way the practice squad goes now, you have an opportunity to still, if you get on the practice squad, you have an opportunity to play depending on injuries and stuff. He's a guy who probably have a bit of a long shot to make the team, but he's definitely got an opportunity.
Total of 259 names call over 3 days in addition to the UDFA. And we've got that list at our website, accnation.net. You go and check out the story. We have that link there. It's continually updated because, well, they keep signing people. And we also have to look for, I guess, free agencies here opening up pretty soon too. There's a nice list of some seasoned people on there that people may be picking up, shuffling around. We'll see how that all plays out. But anyway, check out that complete list of all of the ACC players, and of course the ACC players that are UDFAs, and that list that we have at the website at accnation.net.